From the PSIA-AASI Satellite Studios in Boulder, Colorado, I'm George Thomas. You're listening to First Chair. What a dynamic group we have tonight, excluding me. We've got Pete Novom and we've got Matt Larson, two national teamers, and we are going to have some fun tonight.
Yeah, all right.
So
Good to see you, George.
Topic for tonight, and please, if you're listening, don't just turn off your computer right now, but who should do freestyle? I want you to really think about that. Who should do freestyle? And I'm like, well, I'm an old brittle guy and I don't want to fall when I'm sliding a rail. And you know what? I should do freestyle. Maybe it's almost easier if it's who shouldn't do freestyle, but let's stick with the topic of the show, which is who should do freestyle. Pete, let's start with you.
I mean, this is a pretty simple answer. I think like anybody, and I say that because there's any number of ways that we can express ourselves on a pair of skis, right? And when we think of freestyle, we think of jumps, rails, boxes, flatland. There's all sorts of fun things that we can do, but there's various levels of risk you can take. And like I love how the snowboarders think, Matt, and I'm buttering you up, buddy. But I love this because in the snowboard world, we start putting freestyle into like your first lesson. In the ski world, we tend to think of it as something totally different. But we're not exactly using new equipment, right? Freestyle on skis or a snowboard is just expressing yourself slightly different. That's all.
Yeah,
So
George, you teed us up really.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Matt.
thanks for teeing this one up. I think Pete and I were both making eye contact. We're like, oh yeah, this is going to be everybody. That's what we're going to say. We want everyone on board, and really, it is a really cool thing to participate in. Even for those that are apprehensive and maybe a little skittish about it, maybe there's some stigma about getting hurt, and it just seems like something you wouldn't want to do, but yet it can be so fun and it can be so simple. Even like the smallest stuff can be really engaging and challenging and inspirational just to feel some success in trying something a little bit new. And my favorite part about it, to just sell it a little bit harder, is that it gives people an opportunity to move on their equipment in ways they normally wouldn't. And so just by understanding those limitations or where those boundaries are, that there may be you can push them out a little bit and expand them and give yourself a little more room to move. It's just going to make everyone that much better of a skier or snowboarder.
Now, freestyle, I have one pair of skis and I go in, I'm sliding rails. I'm going to trash my edges because, I'm going to be amazing when I'm sliding those rails. Do you need to have different equipment if you're going to start focusing some in the park, or can you go in there with what you're comfortable with and not be afraid of destroying it? Pete?
I'll take this one. Yeah, not really. Look, twin tips are great. A good twin tip is a little bit softer, right? It's a little bit more friendly, a little bit more flexible. It's easier to manipulate, but like you can use any ski. I've landed a 180 switch on a pair of GS skis before and carved for a while and reverted back around. It's not what the tool's made for, but it works just fine.
Yeah, similarly, so I'm an alpine snowboarder for those out there who don't know this about me, but I have some pretty directional free carve alpine snowboards with a squared off tail, just like a GS ski, no rise at all, yet it's 26 centimeters wide. And when you ride that thing switch, it's kicking stuff up at you all over the place and it like hurts. But you can just rally it around just the same. And I've taken that same board into the park.
Wow. Well, I have to say, when I took my FS1 back in 2009 with my daughter, it was kind of a treat to do a clinic together and actually an exam together. And I'm an old guy with all these young people around me who are very much in park garb. And I wasn't wearing stretch pants, but I was on GS race skis and wearing a visor, no helmet. And I had a blast. It was so fun to get up out of the pipe. And I mean, I'm not talking massive air, but if my shoulders are the pipe, the heels of my boots made it all the way out. The tails were still touching, but I was able to turn and come back in and link a few of those. And I had so much fun. And then actually went down and slid sideways on a rail, which if you'd asked me if I could do that, I would say absolutely not. But how do we get over that fear? Because now I'm 25 years older and I've had a lot of broken bones and there's definitely fear. I don't go into trees. I don't want to end up in the hospital again.
I'll kick this one off because I believe strongly that whatever level of fear you have, say, is just a little monkey on your shoulder when you're maybe going to go into the park, that's healthy to have that there. And it's important to recognize that there's always a way to step things down. So you're into some kind of a performance zone. You're not completely just engulfed in fear. You can back it off a little bit to find something that's more achievable, that feels like it's in your range.
And
Pete,
I'll
anything to
just add to
add?
that. Yeah, I'll just add to that and say that, like, look, what's the thing that we recommend to all first time skiers, right? Like, take a lesson. And so, like, a little bit of a segue, right? But tonight we'll be talking a little bit about Freestyle Academy, which is going to be happening at Killington this year. And there's a 3-day camp. And just like any lesson, right? Like, with that environment around you, with a coach that you build some trust with some people around you that pump you up, you can learn just about anything. And that's like one of the most amazing things about freestyle is just how much fun it is and like how you can feed off the people that are around you, right? And you might try something that you wouldn't thought that you might try that morning when you got out of bed. So go with people you love and trust, and get a lesson. Or in this case, come to one of our camps.
I got to add to that, Pete, because my daughter, she got her level one when she was 15, was teaching and really enjoyed it. But she had joined the high school ski racing team and she hated it. She didn't like being competitive, a lot of standing around, waiting to run through the gates, and she just didn't like it. It wasn't a good experience for her. And she met some people on the ski school staff, uh, and they said, "You got to come into the park." And she went into the park with the right people. They really taught her. She felt accepted. She felt supported, and really gave that back to the other people that she's worked with in the park. And it really seems like there's a great culture in there. Would you say, Matt?
Yeah, I love that story. And I think about how I've had students myself who were apprehensive, but then once we got into that environment and they had an opportunity to interact with some other people that were already there, and then maybe get a little fist pump or and a little cheer from other people that are in the park, and how inviting and inclusive that community is. It's just brings a lot of joy to me to see people get to have that experience and have that reinforced that they're gonna be supported there, and hopefully give them the choice then if, like, yeah, I want to keep doing this or not, but it's not going to be something out of like uh some kind of like, thinking of the word, it's blanking me. It's like it's not going to feel like you're excluded. It's not going to feel like you're an outsiders. I think what I'm trying to say is you're invited there, and so all that's left is just to decide, yeah, I want to keep doing this or not.
Pete, anything to add?
I was just gonna say the terrain park environment is one of the most inclusive spaces out there. You'll see like little kids trying their first, rail slide, whatever it is, first, straight air off a jump right next to big kids, adults sending it pretty big, and like they'll turn around and like you'll see the little kid like fist pump the older kid or the coach walking up next to somebody and like there's it's contrary to what people probably think because there is a competitive world of freestyle, right? But the general public that are in the terrain park are not competitive. They're just hanging out with each other and admiring what other people can do, and then sort of like problem solving, going like, hey, how do I do that? And I've literally said that out loud, and a stranger next to me will be like, "Hey, here's a piece of advice, buddy." And I'm like, "Cool, I'll try that."
Yeah, I'm going to add on to that because, just a little of my own testimony. I end up riding in the park these days with other people that are half or less my age, and they're still just super supportive and will help me along. Just the other day, shout out to Robbie. Robbie helped me drop into the big line at Big Sky. I was terrified, but he's like, "Yeah, yeah, just follow me in." And there I go. I had my own coach in a snap.
You said two words that really stand out to me, and I don't want to offend people with this, which often means you shouldn't say it, but the general public. And I've actually been really scared on the hill. I've been hit every year since 2016, at least one accident with someone out of control, either while I'm teaching. One time walking along, a guy came over an edge near a chair right into me. And I've always been able to get up and walk away, but I don't like getting hit. And it can be scary out on the hill right now. Going into the park, you've got people doing big air. I know as instructors, we do go through how to work in the park, the etiquette, but does everybody who goes into the park have that same mindset? Um, and if they don't, I mean, is it really kind of a self-policing area where people are like, "Whoa, you don't do that"? How does that work, Matt?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of those things. Yes, there's a self-policing element, and when people are outside of the normal etiquette for being in that environment, there are reminders from people.
Because it
I'll
doesn't
I
seem
just
like you can do
say
that
that
with
in
the
a
general
PC
public
way.
these days.
Yeah, and you don't really see patrol necessarily in the terrain park. At least that's not my experience. So I don't want to like paint a real broad brushstroke here, but yeah, that it's part of the community, I think, is like when you're in there, you will quickly pick up on norms. You'll hear people calling their drop. You'll be able to watch people as they move through the terrain park, and you'll learn pretty quickly what the lines are, what lanes, so to speak, are in front of you. And then once you have identified those, where there are safe places potentially to stop. And all of those are pretty observable from my experience. And so yeah, it's really cool. And one, just winding backwards, I sorry to hear you got hit. That man, no one loves to get hit. And I think
No.
that would it's not something we want to see in the terrain park either, uh I don't have stats on it, so I'm not going to talk about it, like collisions in the terrain park, but I want to say it's really infrequent. I think people just understand that there's a flow in those zones, and the people in that community help each other understand what those are. And you see people head on the swivel all the time, even when they're going to call a drop, you see them check just in case there's someone else that's going to jump on or drop in as well. It's pretty neat to see something that's quite organized, yet it's like a self-police thing, as you were saying.
Nothing like a bunch of stuff sticking out of the ground to get people to pay attention, is what I would say. And I think like
That's a
there's
good
a
point.
heightened sense there's a heightened sense of awareness, I think, when you enter the terrain park. There's a bunch of brightly colored signs. Like they're pretty well designed these days. And so like for the most part, people like figured out pretty quickly how to behave. And it's pretty respectful.
So, kind of a tough question for you, but I want to talk about Freestyle Academy. And yeah, someone like will use me for an example. Um, I work full time and teach part time when I can, and so I actually work a few different jobs, um, and scrimp my pennies. And I've got some expensive options at the end of the season that I can treat myself to. National Academy being one of them. Rider Rally if I was a snowboarder, which sounds like a blast. And I could have a really good chance of improving my skiing and working with a national team member. And I've always loved going to National Academy. What, why, why go to Freestyle Academy? What is there for me to improve my skiing? And I mean, obviously, my image is, oh my gosh, and I'm going to be the worst person there, the slowest. I'm going to slow everybody down. And I mean, that's just human. It's something that I would not consider myself competent at. So going to an academy for 3 days, what's the benefit to me for doing that?
Yeah, I got
Neither
three
one of
things
you.
right off the top of my head. One of them is just the inclusive community that you'd get to be a part of by trying something new. And then two, that will open up some doors to really practice and try moving in ways that you normally wouldn't. Three, there's also the opportunity to get your freestyle specialist. And so if you wanted to have an environment where you could train towards a goal and come away with something tangible, something that gets to go on your resume, that is also available to you at Freestyle Academy.
So Freestyle Academy is 3 days of learning, and then would you have 2 days of exams at the end if you want to get your certification? Is that how it works?
Yeah, so this event is hosted at Killington, right, which is part of the Eastern region. And our freestyle assessments are 2 days, right? So at this particular event, the Freestyle Academy for this season, it's March 3rd through 7th. And so the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is a camp. And you can kind of challenge by choice, learn what you want to learn. You can then also take the Freestyle Specialist 1 or 2 on the Thursday or Friday. And right, Freestyle Specialist 1 is basically designed for intro to park type lessons. So there is a specific standard that's part of that process, and you do need to be able to actually demonstrate a few basic freestyle maneuvers and teach and do MA and problem solve through that. But it's not like crazy hard, and I would just recommend going to the national site, the snowpros.org, and taking a look at the standards and performance guide if you're thinking about signing up. But yeah, it's an intro. And then the Freestyle Specialist 2 is like an intermediate level. So, those are people that are reasonably comfortable in the park. They can do a lot of the small and medium features. And they have a pretty good knowledge base to pull from. And so, yeah, those are kind of the two main options. I think just to call back to the question you were asking, George, is like, I think there's only things to gain from freestyle, right? Because it forces you to look at the snow, the terrain, the equipment, the movements in a slightly different way. And you learn a lot about the sport and about yourself. Okay. So like I remember like learning how to butter, for example, and like my assumption going into the day was like, if I lean this far forward or this far back on a pair of skis, like bad things are going to happen. Turns out, like, I can actually get a lot further forward and further back before explosions occur. And like, those are the things you only find out by playing with it. And it makes you a way stronger person. Like, I get to the moguls now, I get a little bit aft and I'm like, yeah, whatever, this is normal. I got this. I can recover. So, there's only things to be gained, whether it be in the freestyle world or in other aspects of the sport.
I taught a 6-week women's program, and it was improve your skiing through race. So I would set course every week, and we'd run gates and do race training. You know what I did though? I have not been entirely honest when I said I have never used my FS1. Every time I taught that class, we would go into the beginner part and play in there because it would really make them aware of things sticking out of the ground. I love how you said that, Pete. Uh, and they would get comfortable doing some easy slides and then take that and what they experienced in the park and go into the race course. And it really worked.
That's so cool to hear. I just adding on to the convo here. I love the skills that you can draw out of participating in something like Freestyle Academy. We keep saying the word freestyle, but the skills that we pull out of here, if you related to, say, our learning connection model, the people skills, the teaching, the movement analysis, all of that stuff is universal. It's not specific to freestyle. And being able to hone your eye or work within maybe a different context is only going to broaden those skill sets as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And like, um, you know, one of the things that I've observed sort of hiring and training people that have come out of the freestyle world is they're incredible instructors. They're incredibly good at problem solving, for example, right? Because you get to the park, you find a new feature, you look at it and you go, huh, like what do I need to do to not like, explode on said feature? And so you become really curious and you try and adapt, right? All these things that like good instructors need to learn how to do. And so like, yeah, it's pretty amazing what can happen when you get into that world and play for a little bit.
So I do have to ask you guys this because I was reading and recording a lot of the freestyle manual. We were looking at making that an audiobook. Maybe we will in the future. But in the alpine and snowboard world, we have dirt, duration, intensity, rate, and timing. But in freestyle, we have turd,
Mm.
which are all the same
Compromise makes a
skills. They
turd.
just have them in a different order. And I was like, I can't say that when I'm recording this. Why
I
why the
love that you
difference
did.
though? Because
Yeah, I'll speak to the
why that
difference.
change in the same skills?
Yeah. Some of it was just to put a smile on people's faces.
Okay, well,
So
it did.
it was pretty simple there. I think it looks like it's working. Uh, Also, I think there was a there was an idea of trying to put the the what do we want to call them? The terms. We'll just call them the terms for the initialism or the acronym in an order that of importance or significance that you might address uh, a trick or movement analysis um, that timing, say by having that as the first thing that would really set you up to understand, say, the sequencing of the stuff that needs to happen in order to get a trick done. Because a lot of things are set in motion. Oh no.
It's like Matt has frozen. Pete, can you take up where he has left off on the terms?
You know, I don't want to steal his thunder, but yeah, like we can, we have to break things down sometimes in order of importance. And if that's just one aspect of using that tool, right? There's a few different tools involved in freestyle, right? Um, TIRD is one, ATML is another. And like we use these different pieces to break things down. And that's some of the fun stuff that you can learn at Freestyle Academy. Um, yeah.
Pete just came in to try to pick up where you left off.
Awesome. Thanks, Pete. Timing. Starts with timing.
So
Something about that. ATML stuff. Sequencing. Stuff happens in an order of operations. Yeah. What Pete said.
Okay. Well, I have to I want to get back to Freestyle Academy from last year because my home mountain, Mount Hood Meadows here in outside Hood River, uh, we had a big crew go there last year and they raved about it. They absolutely loved it. They're still talking about it this year. We're doing regular freestyle clinics with the school, and it certainly got my blood pumping when they said, "Well, George, you have an FS1. We would like you to start joining our FS clinics." And you know what? I'm going to, and I
Excellent.
will bring photographic
Nice.
evidence so you guys can see that.
That's great.
And the
It's
whole
so good
thing
to
is,
just
it's just great teaching.
yeah, it's so good to hear that your crew had such a rad time last year at Academy, the Freestyle Academy. You know, last year was the second one. You know, this is a young pup. This is something we're still growing and is pretty new. And so bringing awareness to it through all the membership and then hopefully uh, giving people the most fantastic time when they choose to come and participate. Hopefully those things will help launch this thing forward, and this will be just a permanent event that just we can expect year to year, and we'll have a solid following. I really look forward to that.
Well, I've always wanted to give it, well, the last 2 years as a present to my daughter Meredith for Christmas. And she's always been really excited about it. And things have just worked out on the timing, the turd, right? Uh, so we want to make sure to make that happen next season. She actually lives in New Orleans, and Freestyle Academy is when Mardi Gras is going on, and she has a lot of house guests coming over.
Another time, another time.
But Matt, I want to thank you both for taking the time. I know it's late out on the East Coast, and I really appreciate you letting me go enjoy a concert with my youngest daughter who's getting ready to graduate high school. I really enjoyed seeing her choir performance, and but really awesome being able to talk with you two. Matt Larson, Pete Novom joining us on First Chair. Thanks so much. From the PSIA-AASI Satellite Studios in Boulder, Colorado, I'm George Thomas.
Thanks, George.